Welcome to the Better Slack podcast, where we have conversations about AI, software dev, and all kinds of new technology. I'm one of your hosts, Richard, and today I'm joined by...
I'm Josh.
And I'm David. I don't know where to introduce myself now. You looked at me as if, hold on, we've not asked you to introduce yourself. So I
was going to say, you took the initiative and introduced yourself for me, which is great, but you can't kind of do it again properly. So I'm going to say, hey, David, let us know who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is David Flanagan. I'm the founder of the Rawkode Academy, which we can get into as well. I'm a software dev of over 20 years, specializing in cloud native development, Kubernetes, and I use AI every day. So any opportunity I get to sit and talk about AI to augment the development workflow, I love to get into as well. So again, thank you for having me.
Nice. And can you let the audience know what Rawkode Academy is?
Of course. It is the last 6 years of my life sitting in front of a camera, much like I am right now, talking to nobody. So it's nice to have an actual face on the other side of it for a change, where I record tutorials to help senior plus developers navigate what is a very turbulent and fast-moving environment of cloud native in Kubernetes. That is refactoring enterprise and old monolithic architectures into microservices and the complexities that come with it.
Nice. Did you say senior plus? Because I would have said senior is like pretty high up there. Who's your audience?
Yeah, I always like to really focus on my niche, which I know restricts my opportunity for audience growth. I'm never going to have, 100,000 plus subscribers, but I do really feel that I can speak better to people that have been doing this for at least 5 or 7 years, just because I have been doing this a long time myself. I'm not out there to do Hello World in Python or anything like that. I like to focus on hard problems, and I like to make content that focuses on those problems too. I think there's plenty of content out there for people that are early in their career, and I just want to focus on the stuff that interests me, and that just happens to be more senior-based content.
You've been in the game for quite a while, and the last 6 years have been focused on your own platform. On the day-to-day, are you mostly only creating content now, or do you still work on the technical aspects of, I guess, your business in general or other people's businesses?
It's a little bit of both. So I do spend a little bit of time every single day, not a little bit of time, a lot of times in front of this camera making content as often as I can every single day. But I also need to be hands-on keyboard. I am a developer. I like to hack on things and break things and expand my own skills. So I make sure that every single day I'm shipping something. The Rawkode Academy itself is horrendously over-engineered. I do not encourage anyone to do this, but I've done it for fun and for profit, right? I like to over-engineer because I get to push the boundaries of what we consider standard architectures in 2025, moving into 2026. But it's also, I get to make content on it. So I build a flywheel of, okay, if I over-engineer this thing, what can I learn to teach other people about the way that I've done this thing? My business isn't just me sitting in front of a camera making content. That doesn't really make as much money as people would think. So I still also work with clients and businesses that are doing monolithic, cloud native Kubernetes migrations and adoptions. And, I'm always working with other people's stacks as well. So I get to divide my time between training, consulting, and content, as well as building my own platform at the same time.
Yeah. Why do you think you opted to, I guess, you described your whole platform as like you coded it out, you over-engineered it. Why do you think you opted towards that, like versus like, an online platform like Kajabi or something in that manner, right? Because I mean, they claim it's the all-in-one package, and I don't know if they mean it or not, but yeah.
I'll be honest, I did try and cheat. So if we go back to 2022, when I first kind of went full-time in the Rawkode Academy, making it my business and my income, I used Wix.com, and they offer like Kajabi. You sign up with them, you get everything. And I'm not a front end designer, right? This is what I was trying to avoid at the time. Is to me, a good design is my terminal, or it's black text on a white background, and that doesn't fly when you're trying to build a business on this with marketing pages and partnership offers and sponsorships and delivering video content. So I went, okay, I'll just do it in Wix, and that's the thing I'm not good at, so I'll trust them to do it. But by having them do the front end, you're kind of bought into them doing the back end, all on one platform, like you said. And I couldn't sleep at night. I'm waking up going, why is this my business? Yes, I got to sit and focus on making content, but when the website couldn't do something that I wanted it to do, it was a point of friction. And these frictions compound very, very quickly, especially when it's in your domain of expertise. So every single day was just another punch in the gut of why am I using this platform? And I just made the decision, you know, how would I do it? If I was going to do this, how would I do it? And I built it all myself. Now I'm very fortunate. Now we have AI, is that I don't need to be good at front end design. You know what AI is really good at? All the stuff I'm not very good at. So I have AI do all the front end now, and it shows, it evolves quickly, it changes a lot, but I've now got it to build a design system. And we can go into the nuance of all this in more detail later. But building it myself was very important to me because it is a microservice-based architecture on the back end using GraphQL Federation, all deployed on Cloudflare Workers, using RPC for all the right models. It's CQRS by default, and I can just keep throwing buzzwords at you. But I made every one of these decisions specifically and purposely, and because I wanted to push the tires. And I'm going to give you one more example, and then I'll shut up for 10 seconds and let you ask another question. But if we take a look at my architecture, some people do service-based architectures by looking at the entities within their domain model and saying, okay, we have this thing, right? An example would be, I have a user, so let's have a user service. What if we do every single column in the database as its own microservice? And that's how far I pushed it. Now, some people are going, no, don't do that. That's a very bad idea. And you're right, it is a bad idea. But I was thinking about evolution of software over time. So I start with a user service, which just has first name, last name, email address, right? The things that I know are never going to change. They are static. Every product in the world has this. But I also made the decision early that we'll never do schema migration on a database. So if I want to add a biography to this system, most people would say, okay, we add a new column. It's safe. It's fine. And we do that. But I went, let's just add a new service. This means that we have a people service, a people biography service. They're joined with a distributed join, which again, you should never really do, but that is the person ID. And this is all made possible because we have this new thing, relatively new, right? In the last 10 years of GraphQL Federation. My backend isn't important anymore, where I keep my data. The GraphQL router is smart enough to fetch that data, cache that data, and optimize that data that I can deliver a performant API with modern day primitives and not have to worry about it. So now I get to build a system that is redundant and resilient and scalable and can evolve no matter what the constraints are very easily.
Nice. It sounds very cool. But before we go into the details, let's kind of zoom out a bit and explain what your platform offers, because you have a course platform. I'm sure you've got videos, but what else does it do that warrants the level of technology that you have behind the scenes?
I mean, that's quite a tough question because I could easily have built this as a very simple monolithic application in like half the time. But the Rawkode Academy platform you go to, you get a homepage, you get articles, you get videos, all delivered again with an over-engineered pipeline using Cloudflare R2 and other means. You get courses, there's learning paths, there's the whole marketing website is in there too. So there's partnership pages, consulting pages, training pages. There's games which are launching today, depending on when you listen to this, but that'll be in the past. But yeah, we're launching the first game, and I'll talk about that later. I'm going to try not to segue into all the different things I want to talk about at some point, but there's going to be developer-focused games on there. The plan is to do game shows. So the platform behind the scenes is over-engineered and built for my future self, rather than what I specifically deliver today, which is a bog-standard video training course website. So yeah.
Okay, I was going to say that when I spoke to you a while ago, you mentioned that you were going to do I don't know if this is still in the pipeline, a sandbox, so you could write the code.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, we have a sandbox already. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you did it already.
Yeah, so if you go to the Rawkode Academy, we have 2 courses on there right now. They're both a work in progress. I'm trying to do content as quickly as I can. There's one on Citadel, which is a OIDC OAuth provider authentication system. It's fantastic. And there's another one, which is for Cosmo from WonderGraph team, which is the GraphQL Federation router and the whole stack there. On the Citadel side, because it does authentication, if I'm going to show people how to do authentication, I need to show them how to implement it too. And that means taking your web applications and have it speak to it. So we're using web sandbox containers, which actually runs Node.js inside your browser. It spins up the entire stack. You can hit the web page with the login button, and that's doing all of the real Node.js stuff in your browser, showing you a real OAuth OIDC flow in your browser, which is really cool, right? And we can push that further. There was a really amazing announcement 2 weeks ago where people have compiled the Linux kernel into a WASM sandbox, or at least enough of the Linux kernel where you can run non-Node.js workloads or any Linux binary in your browser too, which means I could do Go, I could do Rust, I can do Zig. It doesn't really matter. There's a whole lot of new options opening up of what we can run in a browser because of WebAssembly. It's such a powerful technology as well.
So you mentioned this pipeline you have for everything on your platform there. You're quite proud of it, right? The GraphQL Federation, the Cloudflare Workers, all that. Now, AI is changing incredibly rapidly. You love your AI. How has AI evolved in that pipeline since you first built it? And then what's kind of like the biggest headache you've been able to automate using AI in the pipeline?
Okay, so let's start with how I use AI right now. So I like to be in my terminal. I like to write code. Now I have my army of AI agents writing code pretty much all day, every day. So I use multiple agents. I use Droid, which gives me multimodal access. So I have access to Claude, Gemini 3, and Codex. I also use Claude Code because their max plan is phenomenal value. So that's a pretty safe bet as well to build stuff. I now sit down with Gemini 3 most days and come up with specs or PRDs for what I want to build and then hand them off to the agents where I go and film content. So that's pretty much my day-to-day. AI is heavily embedded in that flow. Not only that, I have scheduled workers on Cloudflare that pick random pieces of content once per day or twice per day, depending on what channel I'm publishing to. They consume the transcript, they summarize it, and they come up with some social collateral, learn to speak, and then they publish that on the social channel. So on Blue Sky, every single post on the Rawkode Academy account is pretty much automated with this pipeline. And it all comes down to the transcripts. The transcripts are really important. They have to be accurate in order for the AI. Well, they don't have to be that accurate because the AI is quite smart, but they need to be roughly or mostly accurate so that we get the right context. Now, as far as biggest headaches go, transcriptions suck, even today. Maybe it's the fact that I'm Scottish and I have to pretend I know how to speak English, but I really need to change the way that I speak. I have to enunciate and articulate a lot more than I normally would, especially outside. But I can't make all my guests do that either. So there's a lot of variance that the transcript systems have to deal with. Now, I'm a big fan of DeepGram. I think their models are fantastic, and we use them for every single episode. Every video goes through it, and I get back a pretty good transcript. But one of the headaches is they don't know context around cloud native, all the different projects, all their different names, all the technology verbiage, right? All of this gets messed up in the translation system. However, Gemini 3 with his 1 million context window is really good at taking a transcript. I provide it a whole bunch of context about who I am, what I do, the space I'm in. It's got web search. So something I hooked up just last week, dating this for the podcast, that'll be the end of November, where it loops through all the transcripts and looks for potential errors and then presents them to me and I can approve them and then it updates the transcript and puts it back through. Meaning on a regular cadence, all these transcripts where they do have specialized nouns so that just aren't knowing or known or can be fixed. It does a fantastic job of doing that. And I've seen the percentage of correct stuff in a transcript go from 70% to over 90% just by having the AI go through and fix that for me. So, would that have been possible 6 months ago? Potentially, but the rate that these models are evolving, the skills that they're getting, it just gets better and better every 6 months. It's fantastic.
Do you have a team working for you in person, or like, is this your own business you do on your own with your AI agents?
Just me and my agents. It's a lifestyle business. I deliver what I think is a lot, considering I am a team of one. But with AI, it really does help us. And I don't even think I'm tapping into it enough. I suck at marketing. I suck at sales. And like, I know I should be bringing AI more into this and helping me with it. My SEO optimization is abysmal. And I know I can fix these things, but it's priorities, right? Like we have a list of things that we need to do. Maybe I need to bring in more AI to fix my priorities every day and tell me what to do. Maybe I just succumb to it and let AI run my life and tell me everything that is important, because I definitely struggle with that. I like to chase the shiny thing, which is why I'm working on a Monkey Island clone based around Kubernetes technologies when I should be focusing on SEO optimization and growing my business. But, we take the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance is the path that is fun. And I like to follow the fun path. So.
I have so many questions around your AI workflow. But let's start with the transcriptions, because I have had a similar issue with you when it comes to transcriptions. I've used Whisper, and of course, when it comes to technical words, it doesn't know what they are, so it makes stuff up. What was the model used again? Was it DeepGram, you said?
Yeah, so Whisper is fantastic. You can run it locally. I love it. But because all my automation happens not on my machine, everything happens in the cloud for me, right? I very much do I don't really do anything manual anymore. So the fact that it is remote means using Whisper is possible on Cloudflare Workers, but I'm as well just using DeepGram. It's so cheap. I can't believe they make it that cheap. 11 Labs is also fantastic as well. So pick the one that works best for you. But when DeepGram released Nova 3, which was in July or August, sometime mid this year, that's when things changed. That's when the transcriptions went from being dreadful to I can't trust that to I have enough trust in this that it's not going to do anything or publish anything really bad that I can fix up later. And I've now just accepted that if I do it in 6 months, I'll just retranscribe everything with Nova 4, and it's probably going to be closer again. So I'm happy with that. The cost, let's get some frame of reference here. The Rawkode Academy has 465 videos, over 666 hours. I picked that number not intentionally, but it just came out anyway. It is around 666 hours, the last time I looked at the dashboard, of content. And all of that running through DeepGram Nova 3 cost me less than $300-ish, which is still a substantial amount of money, but that's a substantial amount of content. Like that to me, I will write that off every 6 months of the business expense and do it if it gets my transcripts closer and closer to being perfect.
Sure. So, okay. So you have your transcripts, your amazing transcript with correct, what's the word? Correct tech terms. And then you said you can use that transcript as the basis of social media. So you turn that into tweets or articles. Quickly run through that process again.
Okay. Yep. So I have a Cloudflare worker that runs every 12 hours or every 8 hours, depending on the day. I keep mixing it up to try and measure the quality of the output and the reactions. If I tweet too much, does that bring stuff down? If I tweet less, is it more engaging? So the numbers all change all the time. But there's a Cloudflare worker that runs on a cron. It uses the GraphQL API, which has an endpoint or a query point, get random video, which just does it completely randomly, passes one back. It then goes and fetches the transcript from Cloudflare R2. So I do all of this via service bindings in Cloudflare. Which means it never goes over the public internet, which is really cool. It feeds in the transcript, it throws it all to Gemini 3, and it says, here's the constraints. We are publishing a social post on Blue Sky. This is the time of day. I don't think that changes anything, but I put it in anyway, because sometimes the models just go a bit crazy. I also have to remind it that I changed my name when I got married. So I have a lot of content from 7 years ago, which is my name was David Mackay, and it's really funny. Now I get all these tweets that say, David Flanagan, nee Mackay, introduces you to this project. I'm like, that's not important. So I'm always evolving the prompt, but don't tell people I changed my name. Just correct my name if it's old in the transcript. I then tell the technologies, because the GraphQL API is has a lot of data in it. So we spoke about these technologies on this episode. This is the guests on this episode. These are their handles. Basically just as much information as my API can give it, and then the social machine spits out the post, and off it goes. Now, I should be a bit smarter here. I should have it write to buffer or something so that I can approve it. But I do have a relatively strong degree of confidence in it. I've not been offended by anything yet. That I just let it all post. But I mean, we could build this pipeline to do whatever we want. But so far, it's working well. It doesn't. Blue Sky is hit and miss. It's not getting a huge amount of traffic or anything like that. But the fact that I don't have to worry about it, I set it and forget it, is quite a nice thing. And it does resurface content that I haven't seen in 5 years, 7 years, etc. So it's quite nice to follow along too.
Okay. So everything's hooked up to the Buffer API. You send it via.
No, it should be hooked up to the Buffer API. It is not.
Okay.
It goes directly to Blue Sky. Really, I should have it run and just build up a backlog of content where I can pick and schedule it based on timely events. But that's something that I'll improve on in the future. So,
sure, okay. And then use the transcript as well for articles, you said, if I'm correct?
No. So I never auto-generate articles or anything like that. The transcript, so currently there's also another scheduled cron that goes through a random transcript every hour and looks for improvements with Gemini 3. So Gemini 3 scripts it up, it gets the context, and then it will send a bunch of improvements, and then I can approve them and tick them off. That's still very manual right now. This is something that is in progress. I would love to get to the point where I can have it open a pull request to improve transcripts, but that's just not something that exists at the moment. So it's very much just here's the changes we can make, and then I copy and paste that into a local model and say, go fix this.
So Rawkode, like as a business, right, you've opted to do more of a sponsorship model over the paid models. And I guess early on, before you launched Rawkode, how did you go about validating your business with all the other ones out there? And then how'd you pivot to sponsorships versus paid courses?
All right, let's work through this one. So I did not mean to start a business. I was quite happily I was a developer advocate for an infrastructure as code company called Pulumi that you may or may not be familiar with. We did not see eye to eye, me and leadership, and I walked away very quickly from that position in September 2022, which forced me to start my own company. I was very fortunate, and I got the first contract within the week, which meant that I didn't have to worry about feeding my kids over Christmas. So I was able to just sit back and work out what the company was going to be. Now, as anyone who's ever started a company would know, hopefully, you don't get it right the first time. So the first 12 months in that company, I sold my time for money, which was horrendous because if I'm not working, I'm not getting paid. So I overcommitted, I underdelivered, I probably pissed off a few people. And I just wasn't happy because when you sell your time for money, I didn't get to focus on anything I wanted to do, which was build the Rawkode Academy platform and make the content that I wanted to see. So things had to change. And that was the driver between switching to the partnership model. So I don't call it sponsorship. Maybe that would be, they're probably much in the same. But the partner program is that people give me money for a 12-month partnership, and then in exchange, they get some of my time, they get some content, they get to support the platform. And then I just have to make the platform better within that 12 months and hopefully help them with content and consulting. And it's going well so far. I work with some fantastic partners, and hopefully I'll work with some fantastic more partners next year as well. But it just means that my time is now split fairly evenly between helping the people that sponsor the platform and helping the platform be the best that it can be while making content at the same time. So definitely some hard lessons that had to be learned in that first year. But I feel that the business and my own mental health is a lot better for it this year. So.
How do you kind of ensure, like I'm not sure how many sponsors you get, but how do you ensure that the sponsors you do get kind of match your brand you're trying to build out and like align with your students and things like that?
Yeah, so I'm very selective. I only ever take on 3 to 5 sponsor partners per year, and they're companies that I speak to at events that are in my domain where I know I can make content that is authentic and organic, and I am a credible person to deliver it. You'll hear me say those 3 words all the time during any partner call. Like the minute I lose any of them, the discussion is over. It just doesn't make sense for me. So yeah, I could probably take on 10 or 20 partners, be rolling in a swimming pool. Like, what was the duck from when we were kids that swam in a pool of gold? Scrooge McDuck. But I like to just work with the ones that I do work with because they get the mission, I get their product, and the content is authentic. And if you lose that authenticity in any of your content, it just doesn't and won't be received that well. Again, if I came out in here and say, here, we're going to do Python 101 today, here's Hello World, the audience that I have built up are going to be, what just happened, right? Or if I come out and try to sell it, bang, right? It just, again, it doesn't make any sense. So it's very important to me, and I think my partners respect that, and they're in it for the journey too. So far, so good.
Sell it, bang for those who are fond to say. UK-based cleaning products. So yeah. So I've got. You don't have to answer. Well, you can skirt around this question. But how did it go when you approached your first partner? Because it seems like quite an interesting. What's the word? Interesting proposal. You support me for 12 months. I will give you content and work on my platform. What was it that got them to support you by in doing that, if that makes sense? So
I guess I'm in a fortunate position, which I'll prefix this with this. I'm well known within the cloud native and Kubernetes space. So I am in a position of authority and trust with people that when I say things, they usually respect those opinions to a certain degree. I think in DevRel, that's what we're all trying to do, right? We focus in on a niche. You can call it thought leadership if you want, but when you're good at something and you share your opinions with people, people respect those opinions. So when people are partnering with me, they're doing it because I'm well-known and can be trusted, and they want their brand to get a little bit of that at the same time. So when I say, hey, go and adopt this product, or, at least check it out and look at it, I'm not alienating anyone, and hopefully I'm bringing people on a journey. So they sign up for that. Also, there's the audience effect, right? I mean, again, I don't have a huge audience. I think on YouTube, 30,000, which is relatively small for a developer channel, I would imagine. But that is 30,000 people that are all using Kubernetes. They're all doing cloud native, and they've all been doing this, again, because my niche is 5 to 7 years plus, senior developers plus. It's very difficult to target that audience. No disrespect to the million plus channels out there, but usually their content is for all developers, and that's great. But if you need to speak to someone who is in the Kubernetes space and has been doing this for 10 years, it's not the most, the return on investment for people isn't quite there. Because there's a lot of noise. And as any SDR or sales pipeline people will tell you, filling the top of the funnel with the wrong audience has a very large net negative effect. It has a large net negative effect on what you're trying to sell, right? Because your SDRs are too busy qualifying leads. So they get that. All my partners have been very receptive to it. And then there's the content angle. Now, some of these people want content for my YouTube channel, again, because it has a pre-existing audience. But some of them, and a lot of them, want the content internally. A challenge a lot of teams have these days is they need to train their SDRs. They have to train their solution engineers or sales teams. Everyone in that company has to know that product inside out. And me making videos for them becomes an internal asset as well as an external asset too. There's also some of these companies need to find product market fit, or they're in a very early product-led growth cycle. They don't know if they're building the right thing yet, and they need expertise to take a look at their product from an outside and say, okay, is this the right thing? I'm very handy and helpful at doing that too. Again, I've been in this business for 20 years. I know the cloud native and cloud native landscape. Hopefully, again, my opinions carry some degree of credibility to help them make the right decisions moving forward too. And then there's straight up consulting. I don't know if you've seen my show Clustered. It was a live series that I did where I had enough hubris to spin up bare metal Kubernetes clusters and give them to random people on the internet and say, do your worst and break it, and I would fix it live. That built me a lot of credibility, and I know how to operate Kubernetes. I know how to fix Kubernetes. And a lot of my companies that I work with sometimes just need me to be there for when shit hits the fan. And it's like, hey, can you help us with this? We need some advice. So I help people with skill too. I'm not very good at selling myself, but hopefully, I know what I'm doing, and companies trust that too. So I think that's why people work with me.
I think you've done a good job.
Now I have to ask, with your, Kubernetes experience and stuff, I was scrolling through your X page to try and find some older things, and I found one that you said Kubernetes is simultaneously the best and worst thing that ever happened to platform engineering. Do you still feel like that?
Wow, I don't know how far back you went for that. Damn it. Yeah, it is. It 100% is. Kubernetes was not the best solution at the time. It was the solution that got the most momentum and enough adoption to derail anything else at the time. There was a fantastic project called Marathon and Mesos. They worked side by side. Far better than Kubernetes, but it didn't win the race. The same as Betamax, right? That's the good old one we always talk about in the UK. Now, Kubernetes brought with it a very complex control plane, which is a microservice architecture in its own. It has an API server, it has a scheduler, it has a controller manager. The controller manager is actually the controller of multiple controllers. It uses etcd, which again needs to be highly available. It doesn't have to be. You can run it as a solo, but if you're in production and you do that, very bad time. So you have to then manage and keep your etcd cluster happy. You have to keep all of your Kubernetes control plane happy. Then you have all your worker nodes, which have to be happy, and then all your workloads on it. And then that's assuming so far you have no state whatsoever. So the minute you bring a stateful workload in, well, now you've got the challenge of how do I secure these applications? How do I keep them redundant and resilient? Any persistence that scales with, cattle infrastructure, not pet infrastructure. All of these challenges. Anyone who takes on operating Kubernetes is a masochist, and I stand by that, right? You are causing yourself a whole lot of trouble, but you are solving a lot of problems. Now, Kubernetes is also the best thing because all of this stuff is already taken care of. If you stick to the walked path that everyone has done before you and just use the right set of tools and build a platform based on the tools that have been blessed by the cloud native ecosystem, and by that I mean Google and Red Hat and AWS, all of these companies that have been pushing this forward, you will have a very happy and successful time with your Kubernetes cluster. But the challenge is that people are always following the new shiny technologies and trying to experiment. And that's a good thing, but also a bad thing. So Kubernetes, fantastic project. Everyone should adopt it because all the problems have been solved as long as you don't get too creative in your solutions. But there is a world of hurt. It is a sleeping dragon. And when things do go wrong, they're infinitely complex to debug. And you need to have the right people on board to be able to handle that. It's not easy, right? I mean, better stack. Let's flip the script for a moment. You have an observability product that competes with Grafana and Datadog and all these different tools, and Sentry as well. You do error exceptions, you do traces, the whole hotel stack. I'm assuming this is all running behind the scenes, probably on a Kubernetes cluster that people are responsible for. If you did this all as serverless, I would be amazed, and I would just like spend the next 3 hours talking to you about how you operate that as a serverless infrastructure. But there must be cloud, there must be bare metal, there must be Kubernetes. How do your SREs feel? Like, do you feel your availability is good? Do you have pagers? Like, I imagine it is not easy, especially because you're the critical path for everyone else's infrastructure. If you don't get it right, they're all fucked. And sorry, I don't know if I can swear, but I'm Scottish, and it's 50% of my vocabulary, so it's all I've got.
So I'm not going to say too much about the internals, purely because I don't know too much of the internals, and I know people who are listening to this podcast might also be customers, so I don't want to scare some people, but we don't use Kubernetes as much as you might think. Yeah, well, that's as far as I want to say. I don't know too much internal, but I know Kubernetes is not a big part of it. Right. And I was going to say, from my, I don't know Kubernetes amazingly well, but from my experience of using it, I have found it quite tricky. I messed about with Kubernetes and Istio and all that stuff, and I was like, wow, this is really complicated. If I was building a simple site or like a simple project, like a Nginx reverse proxy database backend, I don't know if I'd default to Kubernetes. So what is your thought on that?
All right, I've got thoughts. So the fact that you don't use Kubernetes actually now allows me to go into why it is the best and the worst thing, right? Now, the worst thing is the complexity, right? For anyone who's not familiar with Kubernetes, let's assume you're just a developer. Let's assume you're a developer. You want to get an application running on Kubernetes. Now, the concept at the lowest level that we use for that is called a pod. So you write your pod manifest and you say, run this container, it needs this port, and you push it to the cluster. And you're like, woohoo, like I've deployed the thing. Now you're already down the bad path, right? It doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is, one, you can never update a pod. They're immutable by default. So if you need to do an upgrade, you have to spin up a new pod and then shut down the old pod, which is manual work, and you don't want to do that. You also have to expose it to the internet. And so you're going to need some sort of ingress controller. Hopefully your platform team has done that for you. And then even if you have the ingress controller part, you still need a service. Okay, so now I need to deploy a service that can speak to the pod that has to use a label selector to make that work. And then I have to give it the right port. Oh, and now I need TLS and a domain name. So now I need an ingress object that speaks to the ingress controller that routes to the service that goes to my pod. Already, hopefully people's heads are exploding, going, that's a lot of work. Fortunately, it can be easier, but you have to know how. So, okay, we don't do pods, we do deployments. These can be updated. They can be scaled. That's wonderful. Okay, now we attach a service to it. Things are a little bit easier. When you don't use Kubernetes and you go down the Docker Swarm route, you don't need to fight with all of this stuff because Docker Swarm was built with the idea that infrastructure should be simple. It should be easy. Docker nailed the user experience for containers, and they nailed the user experience for distributed clusters with Swarm. I still regret the Swarm wasn't bigger and more successful, but that's just where we are in 2025. But when you don't do that, you lose access to everything and every problem that the cloud native and Kubernetes community have already fixed. GitOps, for one, right? Kubernetes has the concept of controllers that run in your cluster that do automatic reconciliation on a schedule. You're not going to get that with Docker Swarm. Observability. Kubernetes has already defaulted to the operator model where we have little custom resources that we can define that know how to monitor workloads within the cluster based on labels. You wouldn't get that with Swarm. You'd have to build that yourself. So if you go down the Swarm path, you have to solve all the same challenges with your own route that goes off the beaten path that everyone else has solved with Kubernetes. And this is why Kubernetes is the best thing, because these problems are solved and the way that we do it is solved too, again, as long as you stick to that path. I feel like I'm now waffling, but I hope you understand the trade-offs that you have to make when you don't use Kubernetes is that people have already done all the hard work here. You get a simpler API with Swarm, but you have to define your own primitives and your own abstractions.
I do see where you're coming from. Sorry, I don't know if you're going to ask a question, Josh. I'll just say this and then I'll let you ask a question. But I do see where you're coming from. And let's put better stacks infrastructure aside, purely because I'm not an expert on that. But if I was starting a project today that is relatively simple, and I didn't need what you spoke of, and I also know there are plenty of tools that I've used, like there's a chaos management tool, chaos CNFC is the chaos management tool, which is amazing. I forgot what it's called.
There's Chaos Monkey, but there's a few of them now, and there's Litmus Chaos. So there's a few tools out there.
Which is amazing and works well with Kubernetes. But if I didn't need all that stuff and I was doing something relatively simple, is not using Kubernetes okay? Or would you say even for something relatively simple, if you're going to scale, then start off with Kube?
I mean, ask me how many Kubernetes clusters I have in the Rawkode Academy. I have 0. Yeah. I mean, that was a recent decision. So I had a lot of Kubernetes. I just decided that I didn't need it. The things that I thought I needed it for, I was able to work around and build my own tools for, which again, I wouldn't encourage people to do that. But for me, it is low risk because the only person responsible for my infrastructure is me. So I'll try to remove that aspect of the discussion. Is it okay to not use Kubernetes? Yes, under certain constraints. If you can deploy to Vercel, Netlify, or Cloudflare, and that's all you need, do it. No Kubernetes. Especially with the amount of SaaS-based products we have. Like if you're on Cloudflare and you need a database, you can use D1. If you need something more Postgres-y or MariaDBA or anything, you've got Neon, you've got PlanetScale, all these things exist. So just go and use them. But remember, you're paying a tax, right? It's going to be more expensive for you to run things on Vercel using Neon or PlanetScale than it would be to stick things on a bare metal box and stick an IP address and a domain name in front of it. And if you're happy with that, it's fine. Now, what you have to do is map out the costs over time, because it may be okay for the first 6 months or the first 2 years, but you're going to be at an inflection point, where you grow enough that you're paying a 25x multiple to be on serverless platforms or SaaS-based products than you would be on the metal. I don't like ever quoting DHH, right? But it's very topical. He removed all of Basecamp from Kubernetes and the cloud to bare metal, reduced his costs from millions to hundreds of thousands. That is the differentiator, right? You have to pay the tax if you want the easy path there. Bare metal is never easy. It doesn't matter what you do. So if we're back to the no Kubernetes thing, I would encourage you to be no Kubernetes for as long as it's financially viable and makes sense. But at some point and at some certain scale, you might have to take ownership of some workloads to reduce those costs. And if you do it any other way than Kubernetes, you're probably making a huge mistake.
Sure, I think that makes sense.
There's going to be so many people watching this going, he's telling people to use Kubernetes, he's such an idiot. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm not an idiot. There are ways to do Kubernetes easily. Again, you can pay a tax and run JKE or EKS or AKS. Any of the cloud providers will give you a Kubernetes cluster. You just pay a bit more. I mean, I don't want to get into like the nitty gritty of how the cloud works, but a virtual CPU, a vCPU, is roughly around $15 per month. I run a bare metal server that has 32 cores, 128 gig of RAM, and I pay 40 euros a month for it, right? That is the difference that you're making. But again, it's all about trade-offs. It's where do you want to be? Where is your risk appetite and where is your financial appetite? So make the decision wisely.
A bit off the topic of Kubernetes, but I read somewhere that you open sourced your tool qenv. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, yeah.
Okay, so firstly, I guess you could tell a little bit about this tool, and then why do you think the world needed another tool in that space, and who's using it, I guess?
I mean, I open sourced it on Tuesday, so nobody but me is using it. Okay. So your research, your Google foo is very current. I'll talk about the problem space more than anything, and I'll try and make this relevant to any audience in the developer ecosystem, because let's face it, right? I could go to any conference and say, raise your hands. Everyone puts their hands up, and I say, put your hands down if you've never heard of Q, and every hand would go down, right? Nobody knows what Q is, right? It is so esoteric and a niche within a niche. Do either of you know what Q is?
No.
No. All right. Case in point. So it's hard to defend why I built a tool and open sourced it when people don't understand what Q is. But let's focus on the problem domain. Do you use dirtenv? No? Yes?
No.
ENV
I
files?
don't know. I do use ENV files. There's a tool that is quite good that I've used recently that manages.
All right,
that.
okay.
Go on.
Let's go 10,000 feet now. You both have projects that you work on. I'm hoping that's a yes. Okay, cool. And they're code based of some degree. So you CD into that directory and you want to make that project work, right? You want to get a development environment running. Now in the JavaScript ecosystem, you might be using TurboPack. Maybe it's just straight up bun run dev, whatever, right? But sometimes to make that bun run dev work, I guess is it Anthropic run dev now? I don't know if they're going to rename it, but that's topical. So you do bun run dev, and it goes, oh, you don't have the right environment variables to run this. So you create a .env file and you stick your environment variables in it. It's like, oh no, you need a secret too. And then that's the first time where you go, oh, this workflow might not work. So you create an env.local and then you put your secret into there and then you build this weird loop that sources that, but only in certain circumstances. It gets very complicated. Development environments are complicated. And env files are fantastic, but it solves one small problem of the development environment. We then have tasks. And again, you might be using Turbo Repo, or you might be using just files, or you might be using task files. There's a proliferation of tools in this space. So qenv is my approach to solve some of this madness, because I used, or at least was using dirtenv. Dirtenv is you CD enter a directory, it automatically loads the envs. Fantastic little tool. And then, okay, but now I need to acquire software. So some people use Aqua, some people use PackageX, PKGX, I don't know how you call that. Some people just brew everything onto their machine, which is wild to me. I'm sorry if you're one of those people, but that is wow. Because the problem is someone else is now going to clone that project and they don't have all the packages that you have, and then that is a problem. And I will try not to turn this into a conversation about why everyone should learn Nix and adopt Nix. But that is, again, a niche within a niche within a niche. I'm really going to try to avoid that. qenv is like, okay, let's take a language that does this by default. Something that qenv does is it has hierarchical resolution of values. And that is a weird concept to people. Assume you're in a repository and you have a Q value in the first directory and it says, my name is David. And then you nest into another directory. That name David comes with it. So if you have shared variables that work across multiple directories, you can do it as a hierarchy, meaning each project can override or change or augment whatever they need. And that's why I adopted Q. And then qenv is like, well, let's solve more of this problem. Let's do task management. So you put all your tasks into qenv, and then, okay, let's do secret resolution. So you put all your secrets into resolution, not your actual secrets, but references to 1Password or ProtonPass or AWS's secret manager or Google's secret manager. And it resolves them all for you just in time for the task that you're running. It runs all of your builds on a hermetic environment, so we don't have to worry about it failing on someone else's machine because it should always run in the exact same environment defined by the qenv file. And wow, you get a tool that solves a whole bunch of problems. And the challenge I'm going to have is convincing people to use it because I still haven't worked out the best way to sell it, as you've just heard, right? I'm like, here's all these niches within a niche and it solves all these problems, but you might not have these problems until you do have these problems. And there's already solutions to these problems, but they're not quite good enough. So I made my own tool. And now I'm just part of an SKCD comic where I'm another standard on the thing. But it is a very cool tool, in my opinion, because it uses the right tool for the job, which is always very important to me. It replaces multiple tools that I was already using, giving me a single interface. And I'm also solving another problem that only people with mono repositories have, which is, if you have a mono repository, why do I have to put every single CDI definition and the root of my repository in a .GitHub workflows when I want it as close to the application that it is defining and building as possible? And qenv solves that through its own CI abstractions that works with GitHub. So that was a lot. And I understand that not everyone has those problems, but it's a very cool tool. It is worth checking out if even 10% of that resonated with you. And I would encourage people to go to qenv.dev.
I'll check it out. It's not a problem that I've had, but I was going to say, have you heard of a tool called Mise on Place?
Yes, I have used Mise. It's another one of those tools that I think does a decent job at trying to solve the exact same problems that qenv solves, but it does it in a way that is more ergonomic. Mise is fantastic. I have absolutely no shade to throw at it whatsoever, except for the fact that it uses TOML as its config language, and its mono repository support is not ideal out of the box. So I went my own route with it completely.
Sure. But I'm a huge fan of Mise. I use it all the time if I SSH into, or if I create a new server, that's the first thing that gets installed, and just run my Mise TOML file.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great tool. But I would, I'm really trying not to take the conversation to Nix, but Nix is like if we want to talk about what is the best tool for the job every single time here, Nix for development environments is that it is, I'm not going to do that to you. Sorry. Are you familiar with Nix?
I've heard of it. I haven't used it, but I've heard of it. I've heard it's a bit of a rabbit hole. You can go deep with Nix.
Yeah, I mean, it is the worst language in the world because it's based, or at least a derivative, or at least aesthetically looks like Haskell, which nobody wants because it's not familiar, right? It's, again, getting people out of their comfort zone. But once you embrace it and you start to use Nix as a language to define the toolchain that you need and your build system, and then there's the Nix package store, which is the largest repository of software in the world, far surpasses anything else out there. Everything is available. You get a really good system. The challenge is you can't convince people to learn Nix because it's very academic, it's very challenging. There's a lot of paper cuts. And again, developers take the path of least resistance. And Q, I think it shares a lot of the same problems. People consider academic. There's a lot of paper cuts. You have to learn something new that you're not that familiar with. Well, it looks like JSON. It is very much not JSON. So yeah, there's a lot of esoteric things out there, but they're all very, very cool, and I love to play with them. Let me throw one more esoteric thing at you now, just because I'm going to ramble at you every time you look confused. Have you heard of a programming language called Pony?
No, I have not.
All right. It is like the greatest language in the world that nobody has heard of or used. And the only reason I love it is because it's actor-based, and that is like the most powerful way to build any system is by having strongly defined actors in message passing. But again, it struggles with the fact that the tooling's not there. You have to write everything yourself, and it can feel a little bit academic. So all this amazing stuff is out there. We have like the greatest job in the world as developers when we get to just sit and explore our landscape of wonderful tools. But again, developers are also signed up to a race that they didn't really want to participate in. The technology evolves so fast, AI even faster. Sometimes people just want to slow down and stick to what they're used to, and that's okay too, right? Pick the path that is right for you.
Now, speaking of these tools, is there a tool that's coming out on the horizon that you're most excited to play around with? Like any tool coming up here in like Q1 that's like, I'm going to try that. I'm excited for that.
I mean, I can't see what's going to come out in Q1 because it's not out yet, but there is tools that I'm definitely paying a lot more attention to. The one that I think is most interesting right now is Dagger, which is a CI/CD tool. I literally just yesterday shipped Dagger backend support for tasks in qenv, meaning that you get that hermetic build environment that can be strongly cached and typed and all those amazing things that containers can bring. My Q approach to Dagger is very different to what they have done. Interestingly enough, their first version was built on Q, and people didn't like learning Q, so they switched. And now I'm trying to bring it back. But for anyone who is not a masochist and wants to play with Dagger, you can write your pipelines in TypeScript, which is a great language in general for everything, where you just say, take this container, bind these files, run these commands, pull an image out of the container, chain them together, so you go from container to container. It's basically the interface that GitHub Actions should have been, but with containers and TypeScript as the base primitives. So anyone out there who's writing build pipelines that wants to do it in TypeScript, Dagger is your tool, and I strongly encourage everyone to go check that out.
I was going to say I've messed about with Dagger in the past, and I think it's really cool. I don't know if I agree with the fact that the TypeScript is the best language, purely because the amount of syntax you have to write for a configuration file compared to a GitHub Action file is so much more to do the same thing. And I don't know if it's worth the trade-off, if that makes sense.
There's always trade-offs, and yeah, I shouldn't try and gloss over them by telling everyone to play with Dagger. You're right. But, GitHub Actions are very repetitive. You find yourself copying and pasting the same YAML over and over and over again across many files. And they have been trying to solve this. You can now use includes, and, of course, actions can be published and reused, etc. But there is, when things are TypeScript, they can be shared over NPM. They can be shared with other people. They can be, just functions that are reused over and over again. And Dagger brings that composability to the CI/CD that I really like. Not only that, they have language interrupt. So if someone writes a really cool Dagger module in Go or Rust or Python, you can call that from TypeScript just fine. And the more things that we move to containers that are this are important. CI/CD workflows are important. You know, the minute they become brittle or flaky is usually because of side effects or outside dependencies. That causes your builds to be slower. It causes developers to spend more time on it. Sometimes they'll skip CI just because it is so brittle. There are a lot of things that cause bad practices. Dagger and containers allow us to have something that is consistent, repeatable, and trustable to the point where hopefully we won't skip it. And it might be a little bit more work. You might have to write a bit more code. But I generally think that is a good thing. Not only that, we can run static analysis against it. We can write tests against it. We can have proofs that our CI/CD system is doing the right thing. And it can be cached a lot better than any GitHub Action workflow can, because Dagger is built on containers and BuildKit, which is just a fantastic piece of software as well.
Yeah, and I would admit the observability side of Dagger is quite cool. The fact that you've got traces for your CI is just really, really cool.
Yeah, fantastic. Plus, you can run it locally. Try that with GitHub Actions.
Yeah, Act.
Not good. It's not close enough. I wish it was. It's such a cool project. But there are so many differences and nuances to it that it really just doesn't work the same. And what I really love about, Dagger is, I can say run this pipeline and then give me a terminal at this point, and I can just jump inside and debug and investigate. Yes, there's a bar you have to get in, but once you're in, it opens up a whole bunch of powerful tools that we just didn't previously have at our disposal.
Okay, I'll shoot here. So you use, like back to Rawkode, you use AI quite heavily. You are the one-man team, which is super cool actually hearing about this on how you put all the pieces together, because I do aspects of that, but I am not a one-man team. With how fast AI is changing, are you ever worried about how this is going to affect education in the long run, or how this might affect your business in the long run?
Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up. The existential dread that I face every single day since AI dropped. I mean, I always sit here making videos just like we are right now, and I'm like, why would anyone watch this when they can open up Claude and say, explain, a binary tree to me? Like, why am I important anymore? Or explain Kubernetes to me, or write me a tutorial. Like, everything is now right there available without the human. The only thing I cling on to is that we as humans are quite likable at times, and I'm hoping that people want that human touch. We can kind of see this already. I don't know how often you spend on LinkedIn or Twitter or Blue Sky, but the pattern and the cadence and the words that the AI use, you can spot it a mile away. It builds up frustration in me. I assume it builds up frustration in Ever. It started off with just M dashes, oh, that's AI, which was annoying because I used to quite love an M dash. And then it changed, and it's now the thing that AI tell for me is it's not quite this, it's this. And it's like this pattern that keeps coming and coming with all AI models. So I'm hoping the fact that we are humans, we are, bags of flesh and blood, that people want that more now more than ever, because there is so much AI there. And I don't think that all AI is slop, but AI slop is real. And the more the market is pushed with this, even on YouTube, you can spot completely AI generated videos now, that the need and the desire and the want to have a walking, talking meatbag in front of them explaining technology terms. I hope that continues to be something that people want. Otherwise, I'm done. We're all done, right?
I think all of us create quite often. We're very busy doing that. You have your channel, your courses, this podcast you're doing right now. And we all have different methods for it. But you're a pretty jolly guy. What's the secret for not burning out for you?
I was just going to say Jack Daniels, but that's a terrible answer. I work a lot. I'm not going to lie, but I'm very strict with the way that I do. So I take my kids to school every morning, and I start work at 10 a.m. And I will then stop to pick my kids up from school, and I will take them home, and I'll come back to work because I need that overlap with the US. But by the time it hits 7 p.m., sometimes 8 p.m., I'm very strict, and then I go home and I do bedtime with my kids, and I chill out with my kids, and I have some fun. I never open a laptop at the weekend. That's just against the rules. I do check emails on my phone. I'm a one-person business. Of course, I check my emails, but I just try to be very intentional about my time, so that when I am in front of this camera or in front of my computer, yes, I can go nuts and hack on things and break things and try stuff and all of that. But just having that divide and that balance between this is my work and this is my real life, trying not to forget that is very important. I'm very bad at doing the stuff that I should be doing, like SEO optimization, marketing, sales. My accountant hates me, I'm sure, because I never reply to their emails. But I try to find the joy in the things and make sure I focus on the things that do bring me joy. So it's a very difficult, it's a trade-off, as everything is, right? Making sure I do the things that I need to do, but making sure I find time for the things that bring me joy as well, and having a work-life balance that works for not just me, but for my wife and my kids too. And when I have a bad day, I will go home and stick on some, trashy TV, pour a Jack Daniels, and chill out. So,
So the solution,
and that could be tea. If you don't drink and you
kids.
just want to drink tea, that's a great option too. Sorry, I don't mean to make it all alcohol fueled, but to me, that's a great way to unwind.
So you're mainly a terminal person. What are the tools you use? Are you a NeoVim, ZJ, Tmux? What tools are you using every day?
So I used to use WesTerm as my terminal. We'll start there. I recently switched to Ghosty. It is fantastic. Props to Mitchell for building it. Why did I switch from WesTerm? WesTerm hadn't had a release in 2024, and I got fed up of running the main branch. Ghosty just seems to be a bit more focused. The speed performance is very good, and the fact that they're spec driven, I really appreciate that too. So I switched to Ghosty. It's great. When I switched to Ghosty, I actually ditched some tools. I used to use Zellige, which is, I don't use Tmux. I hate the key bindings. I'm not an Emacs person either. Zellige to me was like Tmux for, humans and not crab people. So Zellige is a fantastic project written in Rust. Anything written in Rust is my default toolchain. I'm a big Rust developer. I use A2In. That's something that I try and encourage everyone to adopt, is a history manager for your terminal. It's like replacing Control R with something that actually works. The reason I like it is that you can filter between directory, sessions, or global history. A lot of the times I just want the commands I've typed in that directory before, and having that out of the box is fantastic. So everyone should definitely check out A2In. Editor-wise, I explored Zed. I like VS Code. I am very proficient in Vim. I just use whatever is the right tool at the time. If I need to do if I'm navigating code, VS Code. Open that up, I can jump around to folders, have a look at it. If I need to do a lot of actual coding, probably just Vim, because I need all my shortcuts, and the changing word is like the thing I use the most, CIW. If you're a Vim user, that is perfect. Or change in quotes, all these wonderful Vim things. Other tools I use, again, I don't use regular LS. I replaced it with EZA. It was written in Rust. My sudo is written in Rust. I mean, anything that's like a rewrite in Rust is pretty much on my go-to these days. I'm also a complete masochist. While I'm doing this on a Mac, that's because this is a media activity, but I typically run Nixos, which is a Nix-based operating system with the Nix language as the configuration thing. I do that because I wipe my computer pretty much every 30 days, and I have a Nix config that can get it back up and running in less than 20 minutes. So I love that. If my computer ever dies, nothing is older than 30 days old. So, yeah, a lot of fun.
So I've got a few questions about your terminal stuff. What was the thing you mentioned? Because I use a terminal quite often as well. There was a tool you mentioned about history, your terminal history. What was that called again?
A2In, A-T-U-I-N. It is a phenomenal project.
Yeah, because I agree with you on... Actually, but I don't agree with you. So I still use WesTerm. I went from Ghosty to WesTerm purely because when I used Ghosty ages ago, I used it with something called Aerospace, which is a window type manager for the Mac. And it just didn't work well with Aerospace. So I gave up and then went to WesTerm. But what is it? You said Ghosty is more updated, and I agree WesTerm hasn't been touched in however long. Is that the only reason you changed? And what benefits do you notice?
I mean, I could go back to WesTerm in a heartbeat. I love that project so much. And the Lua config, I really struggled to give that up moving to Ghosty. But then I realized it just wasn't that important, because once it's configured, I never have to worry about it. WesTerm also has... WesTerm is a great product. Don't make me change terminal again. I don't want to. I wouldn't miss anything from either one. I could easily go between WesTerm and Ghosty. The reason I think I'm on Ghosty right now is WesTerm on Linux did have some performance issues, but they were very specific to Wayland. And now that I use a Mac most of the day for the media stuff, it probably wouldn't be a problem anymore. I think people should just use both. I don't know. have days you use Wisdom, have days you use Ghosted. They're both amazing, lovely projects.
And then you mentioned you use something else instead of LS, because I still use LS. And so what is the benefit of what you use over LS?
It's running in Rust.
No, but apart from that, is that the only benefit? It's the same as just written in Rust.
I mean, no, it is better. It has icons. It has especially formatted dates. It has better tree functionality. It has all these things that, I used to configure my LS to do through pane and configuration options that just work by default with ESA. ESA used to be called EXA, but they stopped being maintained, so they replaced the X with a Z, and it was ESA. But yeah, just having the little icons next to the file types and stuff is just a wee nice little feature. File size sorting is a lot easier. I know you can just do L-H and stuff like that, but you then have to, ESA's just, it works by default. It's nice. Again, there's no real reason to change other than I've seen it, I thought it was cool, I ran it, and I went, okay, I'm going to run with that. And that was it. Like, that's how most of my terminal things work. I'm sure, I don't know if I am sure you may have this problem, but when your job is to just find cool things and talk about it, you spend a lot of your time just playing and kicking the tires on cool things that don't really offer you any real value over what you had before, other than they're a bit nicer, they're written in a language that you like, or they have a better, cooler name. Like, I know how to work the dig command, but there's a Rust one called dog, and I love typing dog in my terminal, so now I use the dog command to do all my DNS queries, right? That's the only reason. So.
Yeah, I completely understand. I've gone down a rabbit hole of messing around with these things called home row mods, and there's which is where you tap a key, it acts as normal key, but you hold on to it and it does something else. And yeah, I've just changed my keyboard completely and relearning mapping.
All right, let's clear your calendar for the next hour so we can talk about mechanical keyboards then. I mean,
are we going down that route?
Yeah, hold on, I'll get my collection. I mean, I have about 30 keyboards in this room, and I can never decide which one I want to type on each day. Every day is a bit different.
So yeah, let's go through. We've got a bit of time. Let's go through your mechanical keyboard journey. What made you get 30 different keyboards?
It's one of those things. You buy your first mechanical keyboard, and then you keep buying more and more and more. It's a very expensive hobby. But when you type on something, I think as a developer, I think we should always invest money in our tools. A good chair, I think, is paramount, right? It doesn't matter if you spend $2,000 on a chair, you're going to have it for the next 10 years. It's totally worth the investment. And the same with keyboards. I type on a keyboard 8+ hours every day, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners do too. So find a keyboard that you like, or find many that you like and switch them out. Now, the reason I have so many is I have a lot of ones that are one-time runs, like ones that look like a C64 keyboard, ones that look like Amiga keyboards. I have keyboards that, when Keychron first came out, they made affordable mechanical keyboards that were actually really good. So I started buying all the different ones and playing with the Alice layout and buying different switches. You keep swapping between ones that have, number pads, ones that don't have number pads. I will never go smaller than 80% or TKL. I love my arrow keys. I'm a Vim user that will not sit on the home row unless I really absolutely need to. I don't know why. I never got that out of my system. So I need my arrow keys. I also have been experimenting with split keyboards. So I have a Digma Raise, which I love as well. But that becomes a thing you have to learn. And it's very difficult to then go type on my laptop afterwards. Home row modifications are a thing. Once you start bringing layers into the equation, you've got layer 1, layer 2. Again, I feel bad. I'm running a Mac right now, but this is very new because I got fed up of fighting Linux, and I haven't really adjusted to a Mac yet. But I run a Wayland compositor called Neri that does scrolling compositions. I have all my hotkeys configured for that. It's just mechanical keyboards are a rabbit hole, a very expensive rabbit hole where you're constantly tweaking and adjusting. I've never found anyone who says, this is my setup and it's never going to change again, because they're lying. You will change it. You will change it every week, probably. And through that, you just keep, I just buy more and more. Also, I don't ever swap the switches out. So when one of my keys, like my most favorite is one of the keychrons that I've got, but the A kept double pressing on me. So I just went out and bought a slightly different new mechanical keyboard with the same switches, and I'll swap that out again in a year when the keys start acting up. Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking too much about mechanical keyboards now. What are you running? What are you rocking?
Fair. Well, my rocket, I'm not as deep as you. I want to move to 60%, just because.
No, don't do it.
The distance between the home row and the arrow keys at the moment is too far from me. I want it to be a bit smaller. But yeah, so that's the reason. But I've got like a Chinese keyboard. It's like a Der God's Taurus, which is quite big Cherry MX Browns. I'm going down a rabbit hole, but double O rings. I've got
Oh yeah.
quiet, and and it's wired and it doesn't have RGB backlighting, which is kind of annoying because I want to have some cool videos with RGB backlighting. So I want to get a new keyboard because of that. But
Yeah. Well, whenever I'm on a video, I type with this monstrosity that I hate, which is the Apple Magic Keyboard, and it is the most unpleasant thing ever. And it's because no, I mean the only thing I love about it is the Touch ID, which is very new to me again because I haven't used a Mac for very long. That convenience is amazing. I can pretty much bin all my UB keys and hardware keys now. But when I want to type and I want to enjoy typing, I need to get the mechanical keyboards out. So
I guess I'll leave you with one final question here. So, if you could automate one non-tech aspect of Rawkode or anything you do in the day-to-day tomorrow, what would it be and why?
I mean, all the answers to that are going to be very, very mundane and boring, but they are the bane of my life. Like, filing expenses sucks, categorizing expenses sucks, booking travel sucks, sales sucks, marketing, all of that stuff. I want it all to go away. I need Jarvis, I need like Iron Man Jarvis to come in and just take over all the really mundane tasks. There was a really cool announcement, was it yesterday or 2 days ago from Google, where they released their, what's it called? It's like NAN for Google Workspace. So you can set up pipelines. Like whenever I receive an email, I want you to read it, prepare a draft response, categorize it with these labels. And that looks amazing. And they've made it integrate with Salesforce, which I don't use, but it's cool that they're doing external integrations. And it integrates with Asana, which I don't use. Again, it's not useful to me. But I feel like we're getting close now to a future where all of that stuff that I just listed that I don't like can hopefully be some TypeScript or JSON or a workflow that I define, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Like the fact, like I can't automate sending receipts to my accountant because if I send the wrong receipt, that would be embarrassing. Depending on, like, do they want my Tesco receipt? Probably not. That's a supermarket in the UK for your US listeners. But I can't just say anything with a PDF that says invoice, send it over, because it could be an invoice for anything. So can AI analyze that and say, okay, this is definitely a business expense? That would be cool to me. That would save me a ton of time. I want more stuff like this in my life. Yeah. I feel like we're so close. We're on the precipice of something very, very amazing with AI becoming integral to our lives, but we're not quite there yet.
I haven't seen the thing you're talking about, the Google N8 and 8N for workspaces, but have you messed around with that? Because from what I've seen on YouTube, people use the GUI and a lot of drag and drop node-based workflow setup for agents. It seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, I won't do it. I need things to be repeatable and as code. I mean, I've been doing infrastructure as code for 15, 16 years now. Everything has to be codified to me. Like if something is baked into some SaaS platform's GUI that I have to build over time and I can't extract it and rebuild it, it doesn't work for me. And NAN was so close. I remember when it first came out and I built a pipeline and I exported the JSON and I was like, wow, that is horrendous. And I was like, I'm not committing that to Git. There are tools now that are all TypeScript driven. And I'm a big fan of TypeScript and Rust and Zig and all these kind of more modern languages. So I think I could probably define a lot of this with TypeScript now. I think the one that's getting the most traction is at Motia. I think they do a lot of this stuff. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. And Python has some, like the Marimo project is like a Jupyter workspace, but everything in that is Python as well. I want more of these tools. I want something I can commit to Git. And if the SaaS ever goes away or I have to rebuild it, it's all right there. And NAN was close, but I know I shouldn't be pedantic about a JSON export format because it is what it is. But I would lose sleep over that. My OCD would just, no, I couldn't cope. So,
Fair. Do you have, I'm sure you've given a lot of hot takes already, but do you have any hot takes that you want to give before we wrap up?
I mean, does it get any spicier than everyone should run Kubernetes? I mean, I think not. That's a pretty bold statement. I mean, yeah. AI is a focus right now, so I'm going to focus on that side. And I don't necessarily think this is a hot take, but there's a lot of divisive opinion out there on AI not being good enough to replace developers. And the truth is, it really is. And I think developers just need to be on board with this. I'm not saying everyone needs to adopt AI, but just know that you're going to be left behind because the people working with AI are going to ship much faster than you. And I mean, I think back to 1 year ago, roughly at the end of last year, and we were celebrating the fact that Copilot had multi-line token prediction, right? It didn't just predict your next, it didn't just finish a line, but it could tell you, oh, you're trying to write this function and do that. And that was like, wow, that is amazing. And now, a year later, we're at a stage where I can literally one prompt. Not that I would encourage anyone to one prompt. That's a terrible practice. But if you want to, you can sit down and say, build me this thing, and you will get that thing back. Is the code good? Good enough, right? In 6 months' time or a year's time, there's going to be more models where I can point it to all that technical debt and say, fix it. Like, I am not worried right now about shipping bad code to production, which is a horrible take, but it's not important. I do not think it is important anymore. Does it work? Is it tested enough to give me confidence that no one's going to break it, or at least the happy path is okay most of the time? I'm shipping that thing, and I don't care. And I will come back in a year's time and have another AI model, rewrite it, refactor it, rebuild it, whatever I want, because it's now about what is the value proposition. I've realized, I always used to say, I love my job because I love to write code. And it turned out that was absolute bullshit. I love the results. I love the product. I love the goal. And we can get to that goal faster now with AI. And I am all in, and I will use it for everything. And I will take on all the technical debt, and I will have future AI models fix it for me. And I think that is a hot take in 2025, but I don't think it should be.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think there are a lot of people who are against it purely because they think developers should write really good code. But I see what you're saying in the sense that if the code does what it's supposed to do, it doesn't have to adhere to all of our best practices and all of the rules we have for ourselves. As long as it works and delivers value, it does make a lot of sense just to ship it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've been through all the things, the agile movement, the domain-driven design thing, clean code. Everything's telling us that we had to focus on how the code is read, how readable is it to developers, how quickly can I understand it? Should I keep it simple? Should I build a ton of abstractions? We're on a cycle of keep code simple. No, focus on maintainability. Keep code simple. No, keep code scalable. With AI, I just, again, have it build the thing. Do you like the way it looks? Have you tested it manually? I think manual testing is going to be more important than ever than automated testing in the future because we can build things so quickly these days. I guess it's so exciting for a developer. But I struggle to, there's a hard part of this. Junior developers are really going to struggle. And then I focus on will there even be a developers and will anyone actually understand the code in 10 years? And I don't know. I can't predict that. But I don't think junior developers are going to be out of jobs. I think all developers will at some point, but we'll move on to something different. I just don't know what that is yet. That's definitely a hot take. Someone's going to yell at me for that one.
That is a hot take. Cool. So thanks for listening to this episode of the Better Start podcast with David. And it's been fun to have you. I've learned so much. Do you want to plug anything before we go, David?
Yeah, definitely. So if you are interested in back-end engineering, cloud native microservices, Kubernetes, observability, service meshes, GraphQL Federation, all the hard stuff, go check out the Rawkode Academy. I hope you find it valuable. It is all open source and on GitHub. There are links all over it if you want to take a look at the code and see how the over-engineering works. But I just enjoy building it, and I will keep producing content. So, check it out. If you want to learn a hard thing, go play with Q and qenv. I think it's a really cool project, and I'd love to see and get people's feedback on that. So, yeah, enjoy.
Yeah, I for one will check it out and see how it works. I just thought we're BetterStack, we're an observability company, and we didn't talk about OTel, we didn't talk about observability that much, so we'll have to have you on just to pick your brains about that. Yeah, another time in the future.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that I used to work for Influx Data and was very active in the origins of observability and talking about the history of time series back in 2019, 2018. Another episode for sure.
We definitely have to have you back to talk about that. But let's wrap up. Thank you for listening. Find us wherever you find your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever. And until next time, it's a bye from me.
It's a bye from me.
And I guess a bye from me.